Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmidty, Swanee and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Not too bad. How are you guys?
Bloody freezing, but otherwise wonderful.
It's chilly on the willy, is it not?
Mm-hmm. Well, the willy's probably in an all right spot at the moment, but my toes are
the
cold.
The warmest part of you.
Yeah. Got the Uggs on and I've got cold feet. That's a bit rough.
Yeah,
he's got a thrower over his legs.
I have got my Nana rug on.
I'm wearing a Nana cardigan I bought for work, but I put on today, and I've got a bathrobe under me. Turn my heater off so that we don't have too much noise. But I have my Uggs next to me, and they usually make my feet sweat. But I get your point. I've also got two pairs of socks and a pair of shoes on, so it's chilly.
Two pairs of socks.
It's cold, man. It's cold.
2 pairs of socks, shoes, and did you say Uggs or not?
No, I'm not wearing the Uggs. They're next to me. I'm not.
I don't think I've got a single pair of shoes that would accommodate 2 pairs of socks. But anyway.
Yeah, unless it was you probably spend more than $15 at Chemist Warehouse on their Sketcher-like product that stretches out 2 seconds later.
I got to stop you right there. I didn't know Chemist Warehouse did a range of shoes. I thought they were just top shelf fragrance. The
Almost
Britney Spears or the Ariana Grande.
Making my hey! I bought a bottle of Issey Miyake the other day at Chemist Warehouse for $50.
Well, it's funny that you said only earlier today. We've got a friend who's not very well. And obviously she's been inundated with meals and food and this, that, and the other. And I thought, what could I do? So as a comedy thing, I went to Chemist Warehouse and I did a Chemist Warehouse with their branding in the background, like hamper. So it's solo red. And the card was like, I'm sure you'll be very disappointed because it doesn't include a bottle of their beautiful Britney Toxic perfume. They didn't have it in their top shelf fragrance department. But I didn't know they did shoes. I don't think I have got a very good Chemist Warehouse near me is what I'm saying, because I'm sure there's no.
Well, these were just cheapies that I bought the other day, and they got smelly really quickly. They'll fall apart in no time. But for $15, who's arguing?
If you can fit 2 pairs of socks on them, they're serving a purpose.
They stretch quick, yeah.
I'm still confused by the whole Britney Toxic. I can't believe she's got a perfume called Toxic.
I don't know if it's called Toxic. I might have been using a bit of creative license.
Right.
I may not have been using creative license. I don't know. I definitely know that those pop starlets, whatever else, have fragrances in the front. In the entrance of my local
in the windows,
Chemist Warehouse. So today I could see there were 3 different Rihanna perfumes, but they're a little bit above my price range because I was doing it as a comedy gift, and I thought, no, I don't really want to spend $60 on Rihanna.
A joke.
Yeah, cologne. So she got like it was a footnote on the card. Yeah, exactly.
Who are we? I'm Schmidty.
I'm Swanee.
And I'm Clarkey. And together we are
Trial by
Wine.
What are we drinking?
Oh, well, in aid of... I can do it if you like, because we're not much better today. In aid of the -3 temperature this morning, I woke up and I started to have a bit of a scratchy throat. And so I'm having a hot toddy. So there is scotch in it, which is okay.
And lemon juice.
Yeah.
A therapeutic trial by wine.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
I was just thinking about a hot buttered rum the other day.
What's that, Schmidty? Where does the buttered bit
Pretty
come
much what it sounds like. You heat up some rum and some stuff and you put a little bit of butter in it.
You really do.
Butterscotchy. It's delicious.
Wow.
It's a hot toddy. Oh, God, it's beautiful. And I thought, I haven't had a winter cocktail for a while. Might have to get into that. But not today. Today I am drinking Pepper Jack Shiraz because it's what I had on hand.
Ooh, delicious. And
Delicious.
Swanee?
All right.
Well, today I was going to go and get a glass of bubbly. So I bought this as a joke about a couple of weeks ago. I saw it in the supermarket, and to let our listeners know, it's a mineral water, but the name is bubbly. And I thought, that could be a little bit of an in-joke. So I went to get a can of bubbly to pour into a glass, and my children have beat me to the bubbly. And that now makes sense as to why one of them was saying, could you get a different flavour of the bubbly? And I was like, yeah, sure. But I didn't realise that they would have got through the whole pack. But anyway, so instead
did you
of bubbly,
get one of them?
not one. Nope. Not one. So I've had to go for. See, they don't really care about the normal
Mount
sparkling
Franklin.
Mount Franklin, but they're into the bubbly. So yeah.
I'm a fan of the Mount Franklin.
I do like the way that they are pushing both of those products. No sugar. Well, no shit, Sherlock. It's just carbonated water.
There is a bit of
Get
sweet.
your soda stream out.
So yes, that's what I'm on today.
All right. So, would you like to hear a story?
Love to.
Yes.
I would really like to hear a story.
I feel like it has been a little while since we recorded
Take
last.
me somewhere.
So I feel like I'm a little bit out of sorts. So, I haven't quite got my rhythm. All right, I'll take you somewhere, Swanee.
Thank
Will
you.
I ever?
No.
Oh.
Well, a few weeks back, I made mention of cryptozoology, which seemed to completely blow your minds, the two of you. You were like, what's that?
Yeah.
That was when the whole can't, soar with the eagles when you're surrounded by turkeys carry on happened. And because I also like to provide both of you with learning opportunities, and
You
as
do.
you seem to be unaware of this pseudoscience, I figured I'd fill you in.
It's not difficult for you to teach me things because there's a lot of stuff that you know that I don't know that I need to know. So
Yeah, well, you
it's
probably
always
don't need
it's always
to know
a
this either,
I was
but,
going to say
you know.
it'll be just another one of those. So that's fine with me.
Just another of those bullshit things that Schmidty tells me. Right.
And for me, there's heaps of stuff that I've learnt and so much that I've forgotten. So I could have learnt something, I reckon, 5 times and you could still teach it to me again.
Well, it's funny because when I mentioned about cryptozoology and both of you had a look on your face, it was like, well, did she? When was
She
that?
did, but I can't remember what it
Yeah,
was. It sounds familiar, but I'm
I was
like,
thinking dead animals.
I can't remember it.
Cryptocurrency.
It was the beginning of the Red
Cryptozoology.
Ripper. I can tell you when it came up. It was the beginning of the Red Ripper episode because I remember it and it made me think about this, doing this story.
Yep.
And then I thought, when was that? And then I was editing it and I was like, oh no. In fact, I think it was the second Red Ripper episode.
Right.
On a different note, I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Swanee's dad, but I do remember her talking about him having huge hands.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the cryptid in my story has huge feet. So I figure it probably also has huge hands if they were clawed, So I'd like to dedicate this episode to Mr. Swan.
Well, thank you very much,
to Mr.
darling.
Swan.
You're welcome. To Mr. Swan. Charles. Now, I've taken the definition of cryptozoology from Wikipedia, and here it is. Cryptozoology is a pseudoscience and subculture that searches for and studies unknown, legendary, or extinct animals whose present existence is disputed or unsubstantiated, particularly those popular in folklore such as Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Yeti, the Chupacabra, the Jersey Devil, or the Mekele Membe. I can't help it, sorry. Or the Mekele Membe. That's, it's because I'm a fluent
Obviously.
African speaker. Anyway.
Well, this is going to tie in beautifully with my childhood because my absolute favourite TV program and the thing that used to scare the shit out of me. Nope.
Oh, Harry and the
Great Mysteries of the World.
Oh.
Hosted by Leonard Nimoy. It used to be on a Saturday afternoon.
Oh,
And
very vaguely,
it would be like UFOs, Bigfoot, all these unsolved
cryptozoology
mysteries.
or
correct
ufology,
and it would scare me senseless. But I would love it. I couldn't not watch it, and that's what it was called. Great Mysteries of the World. You can Google it. Great Mysteries of the World, hosted by Leonard Nimoy, and I would sit there and watch that with my dad, like absolutely terrified. I always think it as a wintry Saturday afternoon thing, maybe after the football.
I reckon I
was
remember
on.
that.
Yeah, or before the football.
But he didn't dress up as Dr. Spock,
Yeah.
disappointingly.
No, not at all. He was just the host.
But he was
and it was
creepy
very
looking anyway.
serious. And the lead titles and music, it was so eerie. Oh, my God. You've taken me back. This is a perfect connection to my childhood and my father. Well done, Schmidty. Without knowing it, you've hit the nail on the head.
There you go.
Yeah.
So cryptozoologists refer to these entities as cryptids, a term coined by the subculture. Because it doesn't follow the scientific method, cryptozoology is considered a pseudoscience by mainstream science. A load of old shit.
Yes.
It is neither a branch of zoology nor of folklore studies. It was originally founded in the 50s by zoologists Bernard Heuvelmans and Ivan T. Sanderson. Scholars have noted that the subculture rejected mainstream approaches from an early date, and that adherents often express hostility to mainstream science. Yeah, I don't need to prove it. I don't need evidence. Yeah. Scholars have studied cryptozoologists and their influence, including cryptozoology's association with young Earth creationism. Noted parallels in cryptozoology and other pseudosciences such as ghost hunting and ufology. And if you read ufology, it looks like ufology. And highlighted uncritical media propagation of cryptozoologist claims. Whew. Having said all of that, whatever I just said, there are plenty of examples of species identification in places that are sparsely populated or not populated at all. Folklore of the Kraken, for example, was considered to be totally made up, but then the body of a giant squid was found, giving rise to the theory that the stories were based on a real animal.
Dugong.
Yep, the platypus was considered an impossible animal, but we know they exist and can be seen if you're very, very quiet.
Was that a reference to something that I don't understand?
It's a cartoon.
Which cartoon?
Elmer Fudd chasing the rabbit. I've got to be very, very quiet.
I thought it must have been an Australian reference, like something that had Blinky Bill or something. I was like, I don't know that platypus reference.
Just like a cryptozoologist, I'm all over the world. So if I'm very, very quiet in the dark enclosures at the zoo or in freshwater lakes and streams in Australia. As recently as early May this year, scientists discovered a new species of shark off Australia called a demon shark that has bright white eyes and an unusual egg pouch, which I must admit to me did look like a double-string tampon. In fact, 626...
Who pulls the strings on it?
I don't know, but it did look like a tampon with strings on either side. Anyway, in fact, 626 new species of insects, sponges, coral and other stuff were discovered in 2022 alone in Australia. So we definitely haven't catalogued everything on the planet, which of course means Sir David Attenborough has a lot more voiceover work to do in the future.
Oh, I hope so.
He needs to live till at least he's 200 years old, but even then we might not get through them all. So while we might laugh at the idea of the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or a chupacabra, it's not entirely impossible to rule out that some creatures are out there and we've just not found or catalogued them yet. And that is what makes cryptozoology so interesting. It's basically trying to find evidence of the mysterious, the truth in the folklore. My series of cases today are about crimes committed by cryptids. And here we go. Well, sort of, actually.
Now, cryptids are not the people.
Weird the creatures. They're the things that we're looking for.
The focus of their studies.
So my first story from oxygen.com features an elusive figure that is sometimes sighted across the world and has many different names, but I'm going to focus on the Northwest American variety called Bigfoot. For the uninitiated in the lore of Bigfoot, he and his progeny have been around for ages. He has different names according to the traditions of various indigenous American tribes, and early North American settlers started reporting sightings during the late 1800s and into the 1900s. At times, people have found massive footprints and have made casts of them, and there are also a few very grainy photos, which could be a 7-foot hairy walking man ape or a guy in a suit. And that's the thing. There are a lot of things on YouTube if you want to waste your time. And if you want to waste your time, you can see these things on YouTube, and some of them you think that's clearly a man in a suit, and others you think, look, who knows what it is.
Schmidty, it's fair to say that I do want to waste my time, but probably just in other ways.
I'll tell you what, though, it is fun. He's generally described, and it really is. It's great fun. And that's why I laughed when you laughed at me knowing what cryptozoology was, because I went through a bit of a phase. I was obviously a bit bored when I lived in the UK, and the internet was not in its infancy. It had been around. It was young. It had been around maybe 10 years, but that was where people, I think, were able to sort of start cataloguing the stuff or putting it out there. And I will admit, I spent quite some time looking at ghost stories, less interested in the UFO stuff, but then I got really into the Loch Ness Monster and other cryptids. So that's why I knew about it. And I also used to read a lot of chick lit and young adult fantasy sort of stuff that featured, worlds and created, all about this sort of shit. Chick lit. Yes, it's called that on purpose. So Bigfoot is generally described as up to 8 feet tall and extremely physically strong. There are quite a few people who have claimed to have seen or had Bigfoot encounters, yet there's no solid evidence of Bigfoot yet. The hunt continues. One such person who took the legend of Bigfoot very seriously was an Oklahoma man named Larry Sanders. Reported on Oxygen.com, All That's Interesting and Oklahoma.com, Larry Doyle Sanders, described as a noodler, which made me think of Peggy Lee's noodling song. Why don't you join the group? It's better than being a party poop. Yeah. But apparently it's the name given to a particular form of catfishing where you catch them by hand, which is gross.
I'm not catfishing on the internet.
No, catfishing, literally catfishing,
Jesus.
Fishing for catfish, but you do it by hand. And so you're called a noodler. So Larry, the noodler Sanders, took this whole idea of Bigfoot so seriously that he killed his fishing partner, Jimmy Knighton, because he thought he was going to summon Bigfoot and feed Larry to him.
It's a bit Slender-Man-ish, isn't it?
I've never heard of Bigfoot being carnivorous, though, I must say.
I thought he was just a bit elusive.
Being summoned.
Just thought he was a bit hairy and a bit elusive, yeah. Yeah, it's a stretch.
Might have something to do with methamphetamine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Larry and Jimmy had been friends for a long time and their kids were dating, so it was a pretty close relationship, although they had allegedly already had a fight about Bigfoot at some point previous to the murder. Most likely Larry was adamant that Bigfoot was real and Jimmy was not. So Larry and his friend Jimmy went noodling on the 8th of July 2022 at the South Canadian River. However, once they were there on the 9th of July, so the next day, Larry got it into his head that Jimmy was trying to summon Bigfoot. Now, I read an account that said that to attract the fish, you like bang a pot or you bang a bell. And it's probably that Larry was banging a bell to try and attract the fish to do the fishing. Sorry, Jimmy was doing that. And Larry was like, you must be summoning Bigfoot.
I would have thought that would scare him away. But anyway, that's how much I know about fishing.
Fishing or Bigfoot. I would have thought that would scare Bigfoot away too.
Oh, what's that noise? Let me go and look.
Oh, humans are over there. I'm elusive. I can't go near it. Yeah. So then he thought that Jimmy was trying to get away so that the cryptid could eat Larry. So he's like, I think what really happened was Jimmy was trying to get away because his friend was a lunatic and was, attacking him. So I've not heard of Bigfoot in North America being into Long Pig, as I just said. So there is that abandoned town in Alaska that no one will go to because there's a killer Bigfoot on the prowl there called Nuntanuk. But that's another story. At any rate, Larry, not one to be fed to the non-existent monster, punched Jimmy, hit him with a stick, and then strangled him to death. He then went back to Jimmy's place alone and told his own daughter, that he'd killed Larry. Then his daughter told another family member.
Did he tell his daughter that he'd killed Jimmy?
Yeah.
We're having one of those episodes.
Oh, yeah, no, he did. Sorry. I did write Larry, but you're right, it was Jimmy. He went back to Jimmy's place alone and told his own daughter that he had killed Jimmy. Then his daughter told someone else who I think was probably Jimmy's son, who she was engaged to at the time, who called. That's what I say. The kids were dating and they were very close. Yeah. So someone called and then someone I think called the mother. Anyway, and eventually someone called the police, who came and arrested him straight away because there was an outstanding warrant for unpaid fines pertaining to a previous arrest for, and you may have already guessed this, drug-related crimes. He'd been put on parole, having been caught on a public intoxication charge, and apparently then got charged whilst trying to bring methamphetamine into the county. And what I read that to mean was he tried to take methamphetamine into the
smuggling
sheriff's office, where he was being arrested. He had it on him.
Sheriff's office.
That's what I read that. Yeah. At the time of the arrest, the police noted that he appeared to be under the influence of something, but they didn't do a blood test. Due to the warrants, though, they could arrest him immediately, pending further investigation into this allegation of him killing Jimmy. Larry was so freaked out about what he'd done that he assisted police entirely. He drew a map of where they could find Jimmy's body, as it was a remote and densely forested area. They were able to recover Jimmy the next day, and Larry has now been arrested for first-degree murder pending trial. Jimmy's ex-wife was reported as saying she thinks Larry is using the old Bigfoot summoning defense to get off. You know, that old chestnut.
That should get off. Is that like the Chewbacca defense?
Works every time.
From South Park?
Yeah. I'm going to go with maybe mental health being a defense, but I'd assume the drugs had a lot to do with it. Don't do drugs, kids. Now, as I said, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Nuntanuk, the Yeti are all names for the same giant ape-man creature that is seen at times throughout the world. And, not to be outdone, we have our own local variety.
We do.
The Yowie. Yeah. Wiki describes the Yowie as follows. The Yowie is usually described as a hairy and ape-like creature standing upright at between 2.1, we're in Australia now, so we're into metric versus imperial, 6'11" inches, and 3.6, 12 feet. Goodness, the Yowies are big.
Ooh.
Yeah. The Yowie's feet are described as much larger than a human's, but alleged Yowie tracks are inconsistent in shape and toe number. And the descriptions of Yowie foot and footprints provided by Yowie witnesses are even more varied than those of Bigfoot, probably because they're a load of old shit.
What a load of old shit.
The Yowie's nose is described as wide and flat. Behaviourally, some report the Yowie as timid or shy. Others describe the Yowie as sometimes violent or aggressive. If you're interested in seeing more relatively weird but inconclusive heat signature footage, there's a group called the Australian Yowie Research Team on YouTube, as well as a Destination Truth episode where Josh Gates, my new, what do I call it,
Crush.
It's not a crush, no, it's more a secret naughtiness. What do you call that?
Naughtiness?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're like an indulgence.
Yeah.
Geez, what is it?
I can't think of the term. You know what I mean, boys?
Yeah,
Is that your leaf pass?
No.
It's not sexual. It's like a little thing that you do that you know you shouldn't do because it's terrible.
Yeah. What's that called? There's a name for it.
I know. I can't think of it.
Oh, God, it totally escaped me. Yeah. I bet you our listeners are going, and start yelling it out loud because it's really obvious. Yeah.
Secret naughtiness.
Yeah.
Sounds like an underdog.
That is what we're going to call it from now on. Because when you hear I know exactly
secret
what
indulgence is a euphemism for masturbation, but that's not what I'm talking about. You know,
secret naughtiness. Is that like all those murders you committed, Schmidty? Oh, I just made soap out of them.
Guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure. That's it.
God.
What's it now going to be called?
Your secret indulgence.
Secret naughtiness.
Secret naughtiness. I was never going to get that.
Oh my God.
My guilty pleasure. Sorry.
I was going to say, I can't remember guilty pleasure, and you only said it 4 seconds ago. That doesn't bode well because now I think you have replaced guilty pleasure with secret
naughtiness. Anyway, my point was...
you're talking about, I don't know, watching maths, and it will now be my
exactly, a guilty
secret naughtiness.
Secret naughtiness.
Imagine trying that at work. Oh, I couldn't bear it. Oh, I love watching maths. It's my secret naughtiness.
Yeah, and everyone will say you mean your guilty pleasure.
I think everyone was thinking you going the Maz on that if you talk about it like that.
So anyway, what I was talking about is my latest guilty pleasure, not secret naughtiness, is a series of programs made presented by a bloke called Josh Gates, and his team did an episode on the version that's called Destination Truth. He also does Expedition Unknown, which I love.
Did you say Destination Truth Stretcher?
It is a bit, yeah. Anyway, I can talk for a while about Josh Gates, so I won't because it's not really pertinent. I will say, they talk about cryptozoology being a pseudoscience and not using the scientific method. And so I watch various people and they've got there's something in the distance and they've got one of those infrared camera type things and they see a heat signature and they're like, oh, it's definitely something. It could be a kangaroo, it could be anything, right? And they're like, oh, no, it's down there and it's pitch black. You can't see anything out. You can't make out any kind of sense of the topography. So they're like, oh, it must be there because that's, down that really steep ravine. But of course, all you're seeing is a little red dot in the middle of green nothingness. Right?
Yeah.
And
it sounds like defective detecting.
It is.
You don't have to prove anything or rule anything out.
Exactly. You just got to go, oh, I believe it's true, so therefore it's true.
That fits my story, so that's evidence, yeah.
And this version of Destination Truth, also available on YouTube, where Josh Gates and his team capture this infrared footage. And look, honestly, it does look like a couple of people walking around, but then again, could have been cameramen. Could have been, and what's to say there weren't any humans in the area? Could it be a couple of people
walking around?
Yeah, could have been, that's right. Yeah. And all I'll say about him is my problem with it, because again, he uses more scientific methodology, but he's there for less than 24 hours. So how could you seriously say that you've done a proper scientific study? So it's just entertainment. It's like this podcast. We're not legal. We don't know shit about anything.
If you get your evidence in 24 hours.
It's just for entertainment purposes. But, if anyone's still listening at this point, I can highly recommend watching Josh Gates. And he's quite cute and he's quite funny, but I don't have a crush on him.
He's your secret naughtiness.
He's my secret naughtiness, yeah. Okay, so I can say from what I've read, I don't want to meet a Yowie. No, thank you very much. Someone who says he has seen a Yowie many times is Dean Harrison. Reported on news.com.au, Dean Harrison claims he's even almost been killed by a Yowie twice.
What?
Where's Dean based? Where does he live?
The first of these near-fatal incidents was in Ormeo in the Gold Coast and the second in Kilcovan near Gympie.
What a coincidence. So he's been to 2 totally different places where they are.
He's actually a cryptozoologist chasing
Yowies. He's a chaser.
He's
fair enough.
them.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a
chaser.
He's a Yowie hunter. He's a truth hunter.
Yeah.
He's a truth hunter, yeah. Here you go. You can decide what he is now.
Yowie hunting is his secret naughtiness.
It is. All right, to quote Dean, that was a game changer. I can't go back in the bush by myself. I just got hit with a big dose of reality. I nearly got taken down by one at Ormeo in 1997. I can't look at you, Swanee. And that was really scary. It was only by the grace of God that I survived. I don't actually know what he sounds like. I haven't listened to him.
This sounds perfect.
Probably best you don't.
The superhero.
I think it sounds like this. Oh, he's a bit like the superhero, yeah. I made a phone call at 11 p.m. in a clearing before going into the bush, and if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here today. This thing really meant business. But the cruncher was in 2009 in Kilcovan, and if a few guys weren't there to rescue me, I wouldn't be here. That took a good 8 months to get over.
What did?
What guys?
There's two attacks that aren't described
they come in and
anywhere.
I was going to say, they come in and get you all.
Fact.
Probably
Yeah, like
part
you've
of
got
the
a scratch.
Australian Yowie Hunting Association or whatever they are. Yeah. So then he goes on to say the scary thing is that Yowies have a massive advantage over us because of their eyesight in the dark. The thing that knocked me over ran down a hill in pitch darkness, past obstacles, trees and logs. The angles were so steep, but it sprinted down. It didn't miss a beat. The one that chased me at Ormeo was the same.
I feel like he had magic mushrooms and fell down a hill.
Not sure. Yowies go by a few names in various regions. Putakan, Yahoo, and Changara among them. And tales of their existence. That's what I think. That's why it gets. Yeah, no, it is. I've heard Yahoo before. Yeah, that's not surprising. And tales of their existence have long featured in Aboriginal stories and oral histories. The first so-called interaction between a Yowie and a white man was thought to be in 1882, involving amateur naturalist Henry James McCooey, somewhere between Ulladulla and Bateman's Bay on the New South Wales.
Ulladulla, darling. Yeah.
I wouldn't know. Somewhere between Ulladulla. Somewhere between Ulladulla and Bateman's Bay on the New South Wales coast.
Yeah.
Yowies, like the abominable snowmen, are overwhelmingly considered the stuff of legend, perhaps even an endearing part of Australian folklore. Alleged sightings have been deemed misidentification or pure hoax. But a significant community of believers, such as Mr. Harrison, are adamant that these 2-metre-tall creatures do exist and are roaming freely in the Australian bush. He told the QT he believed the Yowie could be a Homo erectus, which is thought to be an extinct species of humankind. I knew you'd do it. Sorry, of hominid. As opposed to a Homo sapien. Homo erectus was beforehand.
I have a zoology degree, darling. I do know what one is.
But it's not the missing link. That's not all. Mr. Harrison, who's been researching Yowies for 20 years, I wonder how he actually makes a living, but anyway, also says many people who go missing in the bush were likely abducted by the creatures. He's even claimed he once saw a Yowie get tagged with a tracking device by intelligence agents at a rural Queensland Army base in the 1990s. However, ASIO has confirmed it's not currently monitoring any Yowies.
But that only adds to the suspicion, doesn't it? Because it happened and they're denying it, so it must have happened.
Yeah. Also, maybe all the victims of Ivan Milat were actually victims of Yowie attacks, and I am amazed that his defence team did not suggest that.
Didn't try that one.
No, but not only are they out there, they may also be able to speak English and, bizarrely, Latin.
Oh.
Another witness, Tony Duffy, claims.
They must have gone to a private school in the 1950s or something, did they?
In 40,000 year ago Australia, when they evolved, they learnt Latin.
No, I think they've learned it from white settlers. But here we go.
A load of old shit.
Now you want to think about what's happening in this part of the story. So, Tony Duffy said he encountered a Yowie one night in the bush near Gympie, clearly a hot spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I got a fright and so did he told the Gympie Times. He was quickly able to learn a few words in English and we spoke for about 2 hours. They're very intelligent.
Oh,
Gets better.
Right.
He said the Yowie returned the next night with his wife and daughter, and they had a foursome. No, I added that as a joke.
Oh,
that bit wasn't
Jesus, you had me going.
The Yowie did return the next night with his wife and daughter, though. Mr. Duffy believes Yowies are endangered creatures whose basic shelters in forests are often destroyed by humans. You know, sort of like orangutans.
I can come at that.
My whole mission is to protect them and to convince people to leave them alone and not hurt them. And I don't find it hard to leave them alone because I don't believe they exist.
Yeah.
In the last 12 months, I've had close contact with Yowies on at least 7 occasions. I am not moving a gimpy. These creatures must be protected and respected. Yowies are clearly the missing link. There it is, that scientists have looked for decades. Yowies are clearly. But this mate, he's seen him 7 times, and yet he's never brought a hair back or any DNA or anything that can say, we don't know what this thing is. It could be the missing link. No, nothing, right? Good on you, Mr. Duffy. They're clearly the missing link. I believe they're the greatest discovery in the history of natural science.
That also hasn't been discovered.
Well, Schmidty, while you were looking at that, I remembered being on Facebook at some point in the last year or so, and someone was talking about something they thought they'd seen on a remote, I wouldn't say beach, but inland off a remote beach down south outside of Perth. And I thought, I don't really know how I'd find that, but I've just looked it up, like Yowie, WA. And there's a guy, a Yowie hunter who works.
They're everywhere.
He worked for your people. His name's Jason Hill, and he scours bushland around Perth in search of Yowies every weekend. He's recently returned to Perth after living in Queensland, where he had dozens of hair raising and close encounters. And he's one of the site. He also helped establish the Yowie Research Group.
Is that the Australian Yowie Research Group?
Yes,
on YouTube
that's the one. Of course, that'll be it. You probably know this guy. They don't have
much on there. They do need to put a bit more video footage up, but I've seen them. And anyway, keep telling me the story.
There's not much to say. He just says, I recently saw Yowies running superhuman speeds north of Bullsbrook. That's just like one of the outer suburbs. He said,
extraordinary.
I believe there is a population of Yowies all around the outer suburbs, including Mundaring, Serpentine Dam and Lake Kanara. Yes, that's Nara.
Wow.
I think they go to pockets of bush near people and use bush corridors. But because they are moving in early hours, is that right? They're moving in the early hours of morning, are incredibly quick. People never see them. When asked why there is no body on the slab proof that these hairy biscuits exist, he says a lot of people think I'm a loony because, if they did, they would have found bodies or bones. Right?
No, they deal with their dead. I've got that in my story. Yeah. They deal with their dead.
But Yowies are elusive and have the intelligence to stay away from human beings and tidy up after themselves.
They do. They deal with their dead.
Oh.
Can't find anything. They scratch up trees, though. You can find that, but you can't find anything else. Yeah. Former Queensland Senator Bill O'Chee has also claimed to have seen a hairy ape-like thing that probably would have stood about 8 feet tall at a campsite at the Gold Coast hinterland in the 1970s. The 70s.
That adds credibility,
doesn't it? That probably was someone's dad.
Just as there are countless reports by skeptics on the internet that scoff at the suggestion of Yowies, there are earnest claims to the contrary. And not just in Queensland. Mr. Harrison's website has videos of eyewitness testimonies of sightings in places such as Brooklyn, Grafton and Kempsey in New South Wales, Kalamundra in Western Australia, and Bendigo and Beauchamp Falls in Victoria. They must be fast. I've never seen one when I've been in Bendigo. I've seen plenty of kangaroos.
Yeah, it's funny how we've got footage of almost everything. But we've only got eyewitnesses of.
They're really fast and they're really elusive and they're incredibly intelligent and can speak Latin.
They need to get some teenagers out there with their mobiles who will film everything that they're not.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Doing a dance in front of
TikTok.
What's that?
Do the TikTok challenge of dance with a Yowie.
Yeah.
So, these have all been dismissed by skeptics. Noises can belong to other creatures. Scratching can be caused by lightning strikes. Footprints can be faked. So there remains no irrefutable proof that Yowies exist. Not happy with smacking Dean Harrison, Yowies don't like trucks much either.
Oh.
Reported by news.com.au.
Don't tell me there was one once hit by a truck, just the one.
A Queensland truckie claims he had...
tipping.
A Queensland truckie claims he eyeballed a hulking 3-metre-tall yowie in broad daylight before it punched his bonnet and melted into the bush. Carla, it
You
reminded
hit a
me
fucking kangaroo, mate.
Swanee, do you remember when we were
I know what you're going to say.
Corsica and the wild boar came across the road, and Swanee made a joke about a friend of hers husband and said, "You watch, he'll get out of the car and be like, I want to punch that, I'm going to punch it, like,
wild boar.
punch it and throw it over my shoulder and take it to the Croatian club and cook it up." And
Matty
it was the
Fee was
funniest
at the
thing.
funeral.
Oh,
And he
that's
had to,
very good.
it was nice.
That's
Lovely.
good of him. But honestly, it was the funniest thing because the minute he got out of the car, he didn't say, I would have punched it and throw it over. But he had a similarly masculine response to this wild boar. And I think I nearly wet myself laughing at the whole situation. So this yowie punched his bonnet and then melted into the bush. And by melted into the bush, I think he means disappeared sharpish. The delivery driver, identified only as Gary, says he was driving in the bushy Gold Coast hinterland on a November morning last year when he rounded a sharp bend at Witherin and had the experience of his life. He slammed on his brakes after spotting what he thought was a boulder tumbling down a steep slope and onto the road, but then it moved. Gary says he watched as the creature unfurled huge hairy limbs and stood upright before locking eyes with him through the truck's windscreen.
So this one rolls up in a ball. Yeah, right.
Yeah. It wasn't a rock at all. Gary has told Yowie hunter Dean Harrison in an interview shared on social media. This thing scared the absolute crap out of me. He said the creature was a towering beast, its navel level with the truck's bonnet, 6 foot tall, off the ground.
Is its navel shaved?
It must have been
Its
exposed.
navel was 6 feet tall. Yeah, it must have been. Yeah.
It's not hairy there.
It's important that he had a belly button because that means he was born. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Look at you. You're already becoming a cryptozoologist.
I
He
know.
reckons it would have weighed close to 400 kilograms.
Jeepers.
At first, the yowie, with its small head, rude Gary, and oversized body, seemed somehow shocked or embarrassed as it stood in the full glare of day at 10 a.m. on that
I'm
November
very
night.
Naked.
Oh,
I'm
my
so
Lord.
shy. Oh, I'm such a lady.
You
Maybe it
caught
was
me
a
my
lady.
naughty pleasure. No, what is secret naughtiness?
Did it have genitals?
That wasn't discussed because then,
Exactly. Maybe it was a lady.
then it got mad.
Two ladies
Oh.
for tea.
It slapped or punched the centre of the bonnet of my truck. It was like I'd hit a small car, the truckie said. He was so tall, he had to reach down to hit the truck. Just before he hit the truck, he grunted. It wasn't a scream or a cry or a howl, but a loud grunt. It was hairy. It had probably 2 inches long all over its body. It had a
Up in
round
the
face like a chimpanzee. Rude, Gary. Jesus, Gary.
Judgy pants.
While Gary was still trying to make sense of what he was seeing, the creature turned, flipped him the bird, and vanished into the bush. No, I added that.
No, I was
okay.
going to say, yowies don't do that.
Oh, but it could have and it should have.
They're guilty of a lot of things,
I have right
but
of
not
way.
that.
Who are you in your truck?
I
Anyway,
will
vanished into the
do
bush.
anything.
Was there a lot of damage to the
for
truck?
Yowie.
When
No, he
punched
just
it?
sort of smacked the bonnet. He didn't actually.
Sounds like he hit a
okay.
kangaroo.
You nearly ran me over. Excuse me.
Yeah, do you mind? I'm crossing here. Do you mind?
I know it's
Yeah.
not a zebra crossing, but
Now, Gary does not want to be identified, fearing
Funny
being
that.
labelled a loon. As far as Yowie sightings go, Gary's is a good one, according to Dean Harrison. This is astounding. He had such a clear view of it. Amazing, he told AAP, adding the truck driver got such a good look at the creature he was able to draw it. He says his years of... This is cute, though. I'm pretty sure there was something about him having a, what do you call it, dash cam, and it just happened to not be working on that day.
Oh.
Yeah,
It's a
makes
shame.
sense.
I know.
Like
Oh,
that.
no. How very disappointing.
I know.
Yeah.
He says his years of tracking work indicated yowies are most likely to be spotted along the Great Dividing Range, with the Blue Mountains the nation's hotspot for encounters.
Mm.
People choose not to believe it, but that is of no consequence to me. We believe based on the facts we are presented with. People should be vigilant and aware these things do exist. Mr. Harrison said park rangers had reported close encounters and strange activity in the bush that they could not explain. But yowies aren't the only two-legged animals with a temper. From the dailymail.co.uk, Dean Harrison himself has felt the long arm of the law.
Has a temper?
Oh.
Cryptozoologist Dean Harrison pled guilty to assault, occasioning bodily harm, when he faced the Southport Magistrates Court, Queensland on Wednesday. The Yowie hunter punched the victim 7 times, knocking him unconscious for a couple of minutes. In the lead-up to the assault, Harrison had complained about being kept awake at night by his neighbours' barking dogs. The court heard. Now, Harrison is happy to run around in the bush all night chasing yowies, but a dog barking next door, too much.
Can't do. Surely the dogs were barking at the yowies.
Probably. I think it was keeping yowies away. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They'd exchanged phone numbers to discuss the dogs, and then the victim rocked up to Harrison's property with the victim's mother to have a chat. They had a bit of a calm conversation before Harrison suddenly bashed the victim, or, as I like to think, released his inner yowie.
Yeah, Yeti slapped.
Bang! The attack was captured on video footage and played for the court. Following the altercation, the victim was taken to the Gold Coast University Hospital for treatment. Defence barrister Angus Edwards argued that Harrison was struggling with emotional stress as his 17-year-old daughter was experiencing issues at the time of the out-of-character, we've heard this before, assault. Edwards told the court that Harrison had written an apology letter to the victim and supplied the CCTV footage to the police. The court also heard a whole bunch of stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the case, but it was interesting, i.e. that he's a cryptozoologist. It's taken him to the Amazon and the Solomon Islands, yada, 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 a whole lot of stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he punched his neighbour in an unprovoked attack. Harrison was sentenced to 12 months in prison, wholly suspended for 2 years, and was ordered to pay a $2,000 compensation fee to the victim. And that, my dears, is my Bigfoot / Yowie crimes episode.
Nice
what do we think?
Work.
Wow.
I think I've just found out that the chap who's in WA saying they do vary in size.
All right.
You can have small ones the size of a child and bigger ones that grow up to 11 feet. They have been seen the Blue Mountain ones.
Like, are they children?
I guess.
Yowies?
So this is where I find quite shocking.
They Ewoks.
They will eat anything. Berries, plants,
and
kangaroos,
humans?
Snakes, wallabies,
Ooh,
and
they'll
roadkill. And humans too.
Ooh.
There are a lot of people who go missing in the bush and the cases remain unsolved and is usually put down to homicide.
Oh,
but I think some of these are the work of yowies. And it also says, this is my favourite quote, I don't know why this tickles me so much, but he says, Mr. Hill believes governments know yowies exist, but keep it on the down low because it would be bad for tourism. That'll be the
spiders
reason.
or snakes we have.
Yeah.
Look, honestly, I'm not going to that country. I'm not going to that state. I'm not going to yowies.
People go to bloody North America to look for Bigfoots.
I know.
They could have yowie hunters.
That's exactly right. It's a draw card, not a disadvantage or a thing that gets us rejected. Anyway, right. Well, that was very good. So what are you thinking about yowies? What do we think about these crimes? Firstly, obviously, Larry, poor sad Larry, or more importantly, poor sad Jimmy.
Which was the one? Who was the one who got murdered? Which one?
Jimmy got murdered.
Jimmy.
Larry did the murdering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy quit. Joey got married. Should have known he'd never get far.
I hate to have to go back to a personal
anecdote
reference point again. Oh, it's living an anecdote. That does involve you.
I do it all the time. Go ahead.
It's this thing of like sometimes.
Did you say it does involve me?
It does involve you.
Oh,
it's
Jesus.
that idea of sometimes when we've been drinking or doing drugs or it's very late at night.
When we touch.
It's that thing where you can really give yourself a scare. You know that feeling when you know if it was the middle of the day you wouldn't have reacted the same way. I mean, I know
You're
these guys are looking
for...
for...
You're not going to talk about ghosts, are you?
I'm going to talk about Lady Leonore. Remember them?
Oh, Lady Leonore.
Lady Leonore, your next door neighbour. Just, sometimes I think you can scare yourself so much and get so caught up in something that your brain doesn't quite know what's happening. But, these guys who are out there looking for it, I mean, that's slightly different. But, there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of... Well, there seems to be no evidence. But...
That's why he's making a reference. I'm not quite sure why Lady Leonore frightened her, but I had a neighbour in the UK for a period of time who was a raging alcoholic, and we'd only just moved into Radstock a short time, really, and we were having a party, and I think it was Claire's or someone's
might have been a birthday. It was
yeah.
Claire's, I think. Yeah,
and a few old folks still, a couple of women from Foxtel, friends of Carla's. Like, we just had this sort of nice little.
We were just girls then. We weren't women.
Girls
who
just came. Yeah, we were 28, right? And all these people came together. We were outside smoking darts, exchanging stories about stuff and drinking in this sort of not very well lit courtyard that we had. And the house, everyone picked up on it. The house was haunted. No, I don't care what anyone says. That house was haunted.
No. That was the next part of the same night. Anyway, that's a very long night.
Oh, no, that was another night when you...
Was it?
Yeah, that was another night when you actually experienced the ghosts. But not, we were too drunk that night. We wouldn't have noticed anything, except we're sitting around and I was telling the stories, but we were just sort of frightening each other. But there was also that funny story about Simone and the salad making, the nude salad making. And there's just a really funny series of anecdotes going on. And out of nowhere, this drunk neighbor pops up and gives everyone a bit of a fright because we didn't expect her. She just came in the backyard through the dark house.
In the dark, yeah.
And then pops up saying, "Hi, ladies." And we're like, Jesus Christ. And her name was, I think, Lenore, but we called her Lady Lenore, and I'm not quite sure why. The kicker of the whole night that I remember was she was talking about having a dog, and she was talking about, remember the dog was humping the pillow or the dog was humping her or something. And the way Simone reacted, she said something like, "Oh, God." The way she said it, it was as if to suggest that the dog got the raw end of that deal. And the whole group of women just burst into laughter. I feel sorry. I'm sure Lenore is probably dead now. I mean, she really was a sad character. But, at the time, it was quite a funny context moment. But I don't know why that frightened you. Is it just because the stranger popped out of nowhere?
It must have been because I think we were talking about something scary and she totally came out of like the darkness and she was very odd. And it's that thing like when you're already...
Poor thing.
When your brain's open to...
Suggestion.
Scary stuff. Do you know what I mean? Or you think that's when you think, oh my God, or, you're
100%.
Tired, drunk, whatever it is, all those things that sometimes it's like if you're in the house alone and you've watched a bad movie or, just stuff like that. You hear a noise. If you heard in the middle of the day, you wouldn't think twice. Is that how your brain sometimes takes that?
What is it? Fight or flight? Fight or flight. You're right. Yeah. And there are certain times probably when your brain is telling you primitively that you are at greater risk. Yes. So in that situation, you didn't know the area that you're in. Like it's there's a natural primitive heightened sense of survival, and so then some other weirdness comes in, and so you have that reaction to it. And it's almost like a what do you call it? Adrenaline rush that you get from it because you get that fright. Yeah,
it is interesting that the truck driver had seen that his Yowie had a belly button because in none of the images
navel, I think you'll find it was navel height.
A navel.
He didn't say about seeing the navel. Sorry. He said his navel height was 6 foot tall, so he was very tall.
Oh, but how does he know where the navel was?
The thing is, he's very tall, but he's got a teeny tiny head.
Yeah.
I mean,
I suppose in relation to his shoulders. In relation to his shoulders.
Schmidty, do you recall your Yowie incident at Bundalong when we went camping?
No, that was a banshee, but yeah. I remember the banshee incident.
So we went camping and there was a possum that night. And I don't know if you've heard possums, but they make these horrendous noises. Yeah. And Schmidty the next day, what the hell was that?
Next to my tent.
Yeah.
I was awake all night. I was terrified. And I came out and said, "Did anyone else hear the banshee?" And they're like, "The possum." And then I felt like a real idiot. But I wasn't long back from living in genteel England at that point, Carla.
I'm surprised that didn't make you a Yowie hunter.
Not much to listen to there.
Well, apart from the sound
an owl, maybe.
No, the woman being murdered in the hills. Oh. You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Vixen.
Like
if you've ever heard of Vixen? No, if you've ever heard of Vixen, a female fox. When they're mating, they sound like a woman or a baby being killed. Yeah. That's the only sort of thing that you hear. And then you know what that is. Sorry about all those women who got killed because I thought it was a vixen. But you know what it is. So you discount it. They don't yell out help. This is that kind of,
Yeah, no, I know the noise.
Noises. Yeah. The brush-tailed possum terrified me that night. Yeah, but it was a banshee. It wasn't a Yowie.
But maybe that's how they become believers because they have an incident like that. No, an incident like that where they feel embarrassed in front of their friends. So rather than saying, "Oh my God, it was a possum," they go, No, I encountered a Yowie.
Maybe. I don't know.
Which would be more embarrassing though. Probably defend on your friends, wouldn't it?
I didn't really believe it was a banshee. I didn't know what it was.
I know, but
so
you were scared. No, the point was you were scared.
I was scared the shit out of me. Absolutely. Because it was down near all right, I'm lying in the middle of nowhere where I've already heard hoons going up and down the road carrying on. I've got
also
nothing
not the middle
between
of
me.
nowhere, then.
Along the road's fair. It is the middle of nowhere. I don't care what you say. Population 5, right? Sitting there in a tent where the only protection I have is the flimsy piece of material between me and the outside world, and something's going around my tent, and they're going, what? Far out. Of course, I was scared.
Yeah. It's like an evil quokka, because quokkas don't make any noise really. But
quokkas are so cute.
Yeah, it's
all possums are cute to look at until they start talking to you, and then something else.
You were talking about Dean Harrison, correct?
I was, yes, and I was wondering if we were going to.
You didn't tell me that Dean Harrison's website had his name in cursive at the top. Dean Harrison's Australian Yowie Research. You really have to see this, chaps. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on.
Yep.
Oh my god!
Can you see
Is
that?
He's got
it. No, it kind of.
No, it's mobile optimized, Dale.
But I tell you what, you can look at reports and sightings by state. So I've just gone to WA.
Swanee is becoming a Yowie hunter as we speak.
And there was one, a young fruit shop manager believes he has discovered a nest belonging, a nest. To Australia's fabled, just a copy, to Australia's fabled man monster, the Yowie.
A man
Tim
monster?
Master, 21, made the startling finding deep bush outside Kalamunda, WA, shortly after he'd been confronted by an immense humanoid creature covered in matted fur.
A man monster.
A man monster. I never liked your secret naughtiness. Yeah. His encounter is one of dozens of sightings reported from remote townships. Most witnesses have described the creature as huge and red-eyed with a nauseating smell.
Oh, they stink. Apparently Bigfoot stinks, Sasquatch stinks, all these ape-like men stink. But then so do apes.
The thing confronted me when I was walking down a country road late one night in 1983. Suddenly, I knew something was shuffling along near me, keeping pace. It was concealed in the bush flanking the road. Ooh. Then the creature stepped out of the shadows. It was huge and covered with thick fur. Its posture was manlike and its face was hairless. Its eyes glowed red in a car's headlights. So there must have been a car around, but he was saying that it was a quiet road before, a country road. He says that besides cutting down, we found several immense splay-toed footprints. Then, deeper in the bush, we discovered 3 springy beds built from branches and leaves and set in holes in the ground. Around the nests were bush cones which had been chewed. 3 years later, when I read an article about
what?
Bush cones.
Sorry, what?
Bush cone?
Few cones.
That's when you smoke in the bush.
Well, hang on. Okay, I'll move on. But I've got to look up what a bush cone is.
Yeah, 3 years later, when I read an article about Bigfoot, I went back to photograph those beds. They were still there, but obviously abandoned. The damn mill had risen and obliterated the footprints. There you go.
All right, so come on. Sentence up, people.
Well, I'm still trying to work out the crime. It's one of those ones where you just go, get off the drugs.
Punching someone's truck for a start, that's a crime.
I know.
No, I reckon
murdering someone because you're on the drugs, that's not a great one. But but I think the Yowie's got some stuff in it.
Hitting a kangaroo and then saying that it wasn't my bad driving, there was a Yowie, so therefore I wonder if that was his insurance claim.
There was no. I don't believe. I believe that the story is he stopped. He didn't actually hit the boulder / kangaroo.
No, but that's what he's saying because he doesn't want to say that he hit a kangaroo.
But I don't think he's claimed insurance on it.
Well, I reckon it might have been his attempt to get out of it. That's what I'm saying. And, you start digging a hole for yourself and then others go, all right, it wasn't that, but he just kept digging.
It's right up there with, I didn't want to get eaten by Bigfoot when my friend summoned him. That's why I killed him.
That's right.
Defense. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like there's a lot of loose screws in these people's houses.
What do you reckon, Swanee? I think you're absolutely right. Well, having said that, I'm going to run into a Yowie at some point now, and then I'm going to mud on my face, hey?
I think it's one of those things. I think I have to hark back to watching this show. It's kind of like sometimes there's something in getting it and being scaring yourself. Do you know what I mean? I think it's why I can't watch horror movies.
It's great fun.
This is about as scary as I would allow myself to. The supernatural and what are these cryptids?
It's all right.
If you could have seen me watching this program as a probably 8 to 12-year-old, I was terrified, but I couldn't not watch because it was just this idea of something that you didn't really understand or know about. But there's always someone who's prepared to come up and say they've been abducted by an alien or seen Bigfoot. Do they go into any detail about the difference between I like how they've got different names. So the Yeti's like Himalayan, is that correct?
That's right. Yep, the Yeti is the Himalayan one. Sasquatch and Bigfoot have got much the same name.
North American kind of thing.
The North American ones have kind of got names that have come from the indigenous people.
Yeah.
Nuntanak is a Canadian, or not Canadian, Alaskan, sorry. But it's, again, from the indigenous people of Alaska.
Yeah.
But they're all there are differences. Like our Yowie has the feet, the toes are different. They don't sit the same way. Bigfoot and the Yeti, I think, have got similar feet in the way that they behave. Mm-hmm. Again, my mate Josh Gates thinks he found the footprint of a Yeti.
Oh.
And it was a little bit different to a Bigfoot.
Your secret naughtiness.
Similar. My secret naughtiness, whatever that means, yes. So, because that Destination Truth is basically...
Stretcher.
I'm suspicious when anybody ever has to use the word truth in their...
Cryptozoology.
Destination Truth.
It's ghosts.
Truth.
Oh, no.
It's paranormal, supernatural stuff. Whereas his Expedition Unknown is more archaeological, which is why I really enjoy that one. Yeah, and a little bit more scientific as a result.
Well, I guess I could sentence the chappie who killed his mate, and I'd have to sort of tie back into Bigfoot, and he would have to see Bigfoot and maybe
Bigfoot,
be like an inmate with him, but no one. But yeah, let's say there really is a Yeti and Bigfoot, sorry, and the crime is he's committed. No one believes him, but he can see it, and no one
comes to get him. It comes to get him, and it eats him.
Correct. Yeah. Even though he thought he'd handled that situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe his cellmate is the Yeti.
Yes,
he really doesn't have a cellmate, but he's just in fear.
An imaginary friend.
He can see him. Yeah, which I feel like is what this is all about anyway.
Yes, I think you're probably right. I mean, I'd like to believe that there are things out there, but not so much Yowies and things. Like I do definitely think that there are, as I said at the beginning, animals and things that we don't know about yet. And if you they keep finding things particularly in deep sea discovery. There are all sorts of weird ass fish that live in complete darkness and
not 3 meter tall men like characters running around on land where everyone is like.
Yeah, I know, but even in like Malaysia, they've got a version of it too. But Malaysia's got a version of it.
One footstep, not like 20
like everyone's got a version. Oh, no. When I watched Josh Gates, in fact, that might have even been in Malaysia, he did find 2 footprints, but one was only sort of half done. So it wasn't. He did a cast of one. Not in the jungle, like to a point, but not entirely. Yeah.
What does Yeti poo look like, or Yowie poo look like?
Oh, they're very clean. They don't let anyone see them, their bones.
And they manage their dead.
They've got fecal management like you wouldn't believe. Fecal management off this chart. We could learn. We could learn a lot.
We could learn a lot.
They don't even need modern storage systems. Oh no, they're very clever.
They have no footprint. No pun intended.
Yeah,
no carbon, no real mark on the landscape. Like they literally are the greenest.
They're the original environmentalists.
Yeah. They are. Yeah.
So when we were in Hobart, we went to a place called Richmond, which is just outside of Hobart.
Yes, I've been to Richmond. Beautiful.
They've got a pooseum, and we opted not to go into the pooseum. But had we had this story and then gone there, I would have gone in there looking for Yowie poo. Yeah, it seemed like a load of old shit.
They could find it. I don't know whether or not there are Yowie. Carla, Yowies in Tasmania?
Let me just check that for you on Jean Harrison.
For sure.
For me
and we also went to Mona and saw the poo machine work.
Oh, we did too, yes.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
It's art.
Yeah, we've had a conversation about modern art on this podcast before. What a load of old shit.
My relatives, my stepsister and husband, they were there and they filmed it for us. Is that when it's like a machine and squelch?
Yeah. It digests the food, yeah.
It replicates the digestive
That's right, that's
system.
It.
I think from my perspective, I don't mind people running around and filling their days with chasing
crazy
things
shit.
and whatever. Like, that's fine. They're not doing any harm. I do think Larry needs to get off the drugs. And if he's not going to get off the drugs, he probably does need to have a bit of one-on-one time with, I don't think Bigfoot, I think Nuntanak. So There is a program, again, a Discovery Channel program called Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. And it's like Blair Witch. It's just really silly.
Yeah.
Can't take it seriously. So anyway, I was just going to say, I'm going to send Larry to hang out with Nuntanak because apparently Nuntanak is like a real arsehole.
He's mean. Well, there's an article here called The Daily Telegraph. The headline is, "Terrifying Yowie had massive sex organs." It then reads,
I can't
30th
believe
of May.
how I've missed all of this in my
It's
Yowie.
such a cliche.
Did you see me shaking my hand in frustration?
I did.
Because when I went through, I have to pay for it to read the article, so I can't. There's a small illustration. I know.
Look, I tell you what, we'll have to business expense it. We'll just have to put it on trial by one. Yeah.
Terrifying Yowie
Massive
has massive sex organs.
And a professional hunter. Was that Dean Harrison, perchance?
I don't know because then it says by day he's a mild-mannered man working for the family business. By night he's a Yowie hunter, and then we hit the paywall. So I don't know. That's
excellent clickbait. Excellent clickbait.
That is excellent clickbait.
I'm okay with, like you say, people going and doing that in their spare time, but don't try to make the rest of us think it's true. I think that we need to get a Medusa mirror.
Oh, man, you're going to have mud on your face when they find one.
Yeah, I will. I absolutely will. But I think they need to go and stand in front of the Medusa mirror, get turned to stone, and spend the rest of their life having a long, hard look at themselves.
You mean that Medusa mirror that doesn't exist either? Because that's
correct.
Mythology. Yeah, right.
See?
Just checking.
They'll believe it.
Well done. They will
believe
it. They'll be the first to believe it. Yeah.
That's right.
All right, fair enough. Okay. Swanee, have you got anything else to add? Because I can see you're in mad research.
No, it's so hard because a lot of it's about Dean Harrison, but then there are all these things that I can't actually open anyway, so don't worry about it.
All right. Well, I know that was silly, but that was the whole point because we've had a lot of dark stuff lately, and so I thought that'd be fun. So thank you very much for joining me with Bigfoot and Yowie Crimes. And as we say every week, miss you already.
Ciao.
Ciao, my lovelies.
Ciao. Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine. Or visit our website, www.trialbywine.com, to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.